Today I'd like to ask a few questions that reflect on the ways in which we cope with the challenges of the coronavirus, the isolation, the limited relationships with others, and the ways in which we can either look at these like a glass half empty and lament what we're missing out on, or we can look at them as a glass half full and celebrate what opportunities they bring for us. Being on our own is a skill. Like any other skill, it takes time to learn, time to practice. Being on our own requires the development of new social skills in relating to others, using Zoom, using internet, email, text messages, more. Some of you might be good at this, but you probably aren't as used to being on your own as much as you are at the moment. Being on our own presents study challenges. How do we discipline ourselves to study more? Present challenges for our worship time, spending time with God, with churches often being closed. And it also brings challenges as to how we relate to ourselves. We can become more self-critical at times like these. Social psychologist Holt Lonstad said, loneliness is not just a feeling, it's a biological warning signal to seek out other humans, much as hunger is a signal that leads a person to seek out food, and thirst is a signal to seek out water. So we might feel disappointed, angry, alone, sad. All of these feelings can help us to understand our very human needs and challenge us to find new ways of meeting these needs. Today I want to focus on three important connections in our lives: connecting with others in these times of isolation, connecting with God and spiritually connecting in this time of isolation, and also connecting with ourselves, growing in our understanding of ourselves during this time of isolation. These feelings of isolation are important reminders to us that we have some challenges that we need to meet. First of all, in reflecting on how we connect with others. How are you going with that? Are there new ways of connecting? We can participate more in Zoom meetings, Zoom classrooms. We can phone up at the college library, others in the library, fellow students that we can connect with in various ways. This is not a time of social isolation so much as geographic isolation and a challenge to develop new ways of connecting at this time of isolation. One of the ways in which many of us connect with others is through church and church youth group. And in these days of church online, we can feel challenged as to how do we connect. But some people are finding this an opportunity to connect with others through church even more. Someone has said church is a place where I go to be reminded that the world is full of other people, that they all have needs and desires, every bit as urgent and real as mine. It's not just for those gathered in the sanctuary, but all around the world. So church is a reminder that we get value through interacting with others, and I encourage you to seek out church resources. This can be an opportunity to find more YouTube resources, more worship resources, more ways of connecting with others and helping others, not just receiving but giving through the many resources that we have. This can be an opportunity for connecting with God in new ways, reading the Psalms, reading passages in Scripture or devotionals that we've not read for some time, for watching some YouTube on great preachers, strengthening our habits of meeting with God, meeting with others, and understanding ourselves. It can be a time to start a prayer journal, time to start a reading program. Often it takes discipline at times like these in order to fully understand and use the resources that we have in new ways. It can be a time to connect with new sermons. It can be a time to connect with God and to journal what we're hearing God say to us. Psalm 68 verses 5 and 6 remind us that God is there for us. He's a father to the fatherless, a defender of the widows. It is God who in his holy dwelling sets the lonely in families and leads out the prisoners with singing. But the rebellious live a sun-scorched land. We can find that the same God is there for us to encourage us in this time. But in order to do that, we often need to change our approach to God from one of neglecting God to one of being open to God speaking to us. How are you connecting with God at this time? Are you seeing it as a time of opportunity, or a time where you're not using those opportunities as fully as one could? When we spend time alone with ourselves, often we can feel bored, we can develop bad habits, we can overeat, we can TV binge. Often being alone requires more skills in setting our goals, in setting our disciplines, in order that we can use this time to full advantage. It can be a time of challenge in our studies. We can think our studies are too big, we can too easily procrastinate. This is a time to develop new skills in our studies, to prioritise, to realise that we can't just tackle a very big task, we need to break it down into smaller, doable tasks. This can be a time for setting aside opportunity for physical exercise, spiritual exercise, but also academic exercise and study exercise. What are your goals during this time? You can save time in that you don't have to drive to class as long. You don't have to spend time between classes. There should be more time and opportunity to engage in the scholarly resources that are provided for you on Moodle and on the internet. There should be more time for reading, engaging with the book resources, and the CHC Library has many online book resources and other resources, journal resources that you could engage with. William Wordsworth and David Thoreau, Mary Oliver and Annie Dillard, many great writers have said it's times of solitude where they can connect with the task at hand and they can accomplish much more. They can find their true inner voice. They can express us. Many artists and creative workers say that they find time alone is the time where they get their most productive work done, less interrupted. So you too could see this time as a time of opportunity. When we read scripture, we read of Moses spending 40 days alone on Mount Sinai. We spend time with God, or we can allow that time to quickly slip past. When we read about the Apostle Paul in the New Testament, we're reminded that he used his time over 10 years to connect with God, and then he used that greater connection with God in a strengthened sense of ministry. So at this time alone, I encourage you to be honest and own up to how it feels, to watch your emotions and get to think about your emotions and where you're at, to be realistic about your goals and how they might be achieved, and to think about the ways in which you can connect and achieve much more. You can connect with others, you connect with God, you can connect with yourself, and you can use this time productively.